Okay guys, so we are going to start the Angry Birds project, and I'm going to use the Show Me app and a couple videos that I filmed to help explain how we're going to do the first part. Now keep in mind you'll have to use a different example for your project, but hopefully you'll be able to figure it out as we go along. So the first thing you need to do, actually the first two things you need to do is first write an equation to represent the flight of a red bird. And the second thing you need to do is find the start and the landing point of the bird. It's actually kind of easier to go through and find the start and the landing point first before you go ahead and actually try to find the equation of the graph. So we got to think of what a parabola is. And if we just think the parabola as not so much as, okay, y equals x squared plus I don't know, something x plus something, like some number 6, to get a parabola like so, we're going to think it as something different. We're going to change it as, okay, y equals, I'm going to put k here, x plus a times x plus b. Alright, so what we got to think? A, if we think of these as like zeros on the graph, A would be our start. Okay, because whatever A had to be to make that equal 0, that's where we'd be landing, and we'd have across the x-axis. And B is where we're going to land. So here we go. Now what K is the constant. And what you might think, the constants can change. And remember when we talked about before in the year, the constant, if it's a larger number, it's going to be more steeper. So the bigger the number, like, okay, 1's pretty shallow, but if we go to 2, it's going to be twice as steep. And 3 is going to be 3 times as steep. Of course, if we use a fraction, it's going to be more shallow. So if we use a half, it's going to be half as tall as 1. So let's go through and just take this formula and fill in some blanks. So we got y equals, okay, x plus times x plus that. Alright, so our constant. I always like to keep it simple, and the probably most simple number we can pick is 1. Now we got to think, if x is 1, a parabola normally would look like a U. But since the birds fly and shape like a lowercase n, we need to make it negative. So our k is going to be negative 1. Now, where do we want to start? You can start anywhere in the graph, but it's going to be a whole heck of a lot easier to start at 0. So we're going to make x plus 0. And where do we want to land? Well, we can land anywhere on the graph. You're making up the equation. So let's pick a nice number like 20. 20 is the easy place to land. Now, if we think about it, if we want to land at 20, we got to put a negative 20 here, because x would have to be a positive 20 to make that equal to 0 and to be a real root of the function. So let's clean this up a bit, and let's see. Okay, we get y equals, we'll distribute this part first, and we get negative x times, this would be x minus 20. And so our equation that we get is y equals negative x squared. The negative times negative makes it plus 20. And so here we go. This is the equation we're going to use for the red bird. Okay, actually I make a correction here. It should be y equals negative x squared plus 20x. Okay, so I caught that real quick. So we got y equals negative x squared plus 20x. Well, the next thing I need you guys to do is find the maximum height of the bird. And actually, the point of the maximum height. Well, remember, the maximum height is at the point at the top of the graph. So the bird's going to do something like that. We want to find out right that spot right there. So we need to remember the slope at this point is 0. It's a horizontal line. So we're going to have to take this equation and take the derivative of it. Okay, that will give us the slope. So the derivative, so y prime, would equal, drop it down by the power rule, negative 2x plus 20. Now, since right here we want the slope to equal 0, we're going to take this equation and set it equal to 0. And we're going to go through and solve. So let's see, we're going to subtract 20 over, and we get negative 2x equals negative 20, and we're going to divide by negative 2. The negatives are going to cancel each other out, and x equals 10. Now that tells me the x value is 10. So right here, going left to right, it's over 10, but we got to figure out how high that is. So we're going to take this number and plug it back into not the slope equation, but to the original equation. Okay, that gives us slope, this gives us height. So we get y equals negative, okay, we're going to do 10 squared plus 20 times 10. Alright, so 10 squared is 100, so we get negative 100 plus, I wrote x, should be 10, plus 200. Negative 100 plus 200 is 100. And so that means our point is 100 tall up there. So our maximum point is at the point 10, 100. Alright, the last thing that you need to do is find the area underneath the curve. Okay, so if we are actually designing, how many blocks could we put underneath this curve? Well, what we're going to have to do to find the area, well, remember the last thing we talked about of the year was the integrals. And integrals help us find area underneath the curve. So we're going to take the integral of this function. So remember, y becomes capital Y, or the integral of y. And we're going to do the opposite power rule. So this becomes negative x cubed over 3 plus 20x squared over 2. Now let's clean that up. So we get y, capital Y, equals negative x cubed over 3. Really can't do much with that, but we can do plus 20 divided by 2 is 10. So this becomes 10x squared. Now we're going to take the integral from the start to the finish. So we have to remember, our graph started at 0 and we finished at the point 20. So we're going to take the integral of this function from 0 to 20. And so remember, this is a simple one, no substitution involved in this. What we're going to do first is the 0. We're going to plug in 0 into this equation. Actually, no, we don't even need to do that. This is even simpler. We're going to plug in 20. And we're going to do negative 20 cubed over 3 plus 100 times 20 squared. Alright, we're going to figure that out. And then we're going to subtract. We're going to plug in 0 next. Negative 0 cubed over 3 plus 10 over times 0 squared. Alright, so the area underneath the graph. Let's figure this one out. You can use the calculator, but this is going to equal 1,333 and a third, or 0.3 repeating. Minus, this is easy because we got zeros, minus 0. So the area underneath the curve is 1,333.3 repeating. Okay, so that's how you do the red bird. Fortunately, the red bird is the easiest bird to do. You'll have to do the yellow bird. Now keep in mind, the yellow bird is the parabola, and then at the power point, you get a straight line. So you're going to have to write an equation for a straight line. And then you'll have to do the same thing with the blue bird. But the blue birds start out as one bird, but then split off into 3 different parabolas off of that. So that's going to be a little bit more complicated. Okay, but this is the basics. Good luck on the rest, and good luck on your project.